Hi, Mickey. Are you experiencing any vertigo?
I guess I am feeling a little dizzy.
Oh, wow! Did you see that?
I wouldn't be surprised if you're thinking at this point, what have I done?
Right. Bong Joon-ho is back with a new movie, Mickey 17. Okay, so when I heard that he was coming back to do, a new movie, was excited. And from the looks of it, I was going, okay, I don't necessarily know what this is, but we'll see. And so we've got this movie, which is about, it's set in the future where this company who's run by Mark Ruffalo, he puts on this expedition to find new stuff. And on board is Mickey, who is a guy who just wanted to get off Earth. He didn't care what he had to do. He didn't care what job, but he signs up for being basically somebody who can die for research, and then they clone him back to life. And they cloned him 17 times. And on the 17th, they thought he was dead, so they cloned him again. But 17 comes back and meets a new version of him, who Mickey 17. He's kind of, I wouldn't say wimp, but he's definitely kind of feels like a shy dog, doesn't like to deal with confrontations and all that stuff. And then 18 comes in and is basically a complete difference to him, complete 180, and instead, is a massive ass, I'll say. So it's really kind of cool to see Robert Pattinson, play two different roles, even though they're supposed to be the same person. And, I saw Robert Pattinson, doing Twilight stuff. I'm just like, yeah, I don't know if this guy can even act. And then I saw The Lighthouse, and I was like, okay, dude, I can, I got you. I think you can do Batman. And I thought he did Batman pretty well. So I was like, all right, he can actually act. He's an actual actor. He's not just running around looking pale like a vegan and sparkles in the light. So we're moved past that. But anyway, so this movie tries to blend a comedy sci-fi movie with a political satire movie. And the comedy, a lot of it has to do with, the amount of crap that Mickey is taking. And it's just like that, this poor guy. I mean, he's literally going through hell. I mean, the fact that, everybody's asking him, what's it like to die? And he's just kind of he's hit that point where he's just it doesn't matter to me, because it's just, it's like a job. Dying is his job, which is pretty sad. So the sci-fi stuff, I think, works. The effects I thought were pretty impressive. But also this is from Bong Joon-ho, who did Snowpiercer. So there we go. And this definitely feels a lot more like something like Snowpiercer than Parasite. And well, that's not a bad thing. This movie does feel very slow. There is some backstory to some characters that I'm I don't think this was necessary. And a lot of the blending between a comedy sci-fi movie and a political satire is, trying to find that balance. And sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't, which then can bring the pacing down. Another thing about it is that there's a lot of talking in this. At times it does feel like a Tarantino movie where it's just like, okay, we're gonna get onto like a talking scene that's just like gonna feel very dragged out. So its pacing is very slow. I feel like a good 20 to 25 minutes could have been maybe cut and reworked. If not reworked, then cut. Because there are some parts where I'm like, I don't think that was necessary. I think you could have maybe like zoomed past that and it probably would have worked. The highlight for me is the cinematography and the performances, mainly from Robert Pattinson, because he has the daunting task of not just being, the same character, but, he's playing two different versions of the same guy. But, one is very, very shy, like doesn't want to deal with anything. Well, the other is a very uptight a-hole who also wants to rebel. So you got those two things going on. And, another problem with this is that I personally didn't care for really anybody. I mean, for Mickey, you feel bad for him because it's dying is his job. And, if he doesn't die, then it kind of screws up a big process. So when something like this happens, they're like, oh crap, what are we going to do? His girlfriend, the first thing that comes to her mind when she sees two of them is, oh, I want to have sex with both of them. And it's like, huh? Like, you're not stopping to kind of think, like, wait, there's two of you. How the hell are there two of you? It's just like, no, I want to have sex with you. And it's like, wait, what? Mark Ruffalo, it's kind of weird. It seems like after something like MCU, the stuff he's been getting, it's kind of like, okay, like, you're showing kind of potential again. I'm not saying that what he was doing in the MCU was bad, but it was just like, yeah, you could be doing a little bit more. And something like this, or even that movie he did with Emma Stone, where she was kind of like a Frankenstein. I can't think of the name at the moment. Where it's kind of like, all right, you're showing what you can really do. And so I really enjoyed the performances. I thought they were all pretty good. Cinematography I thought was very impressive. The effects I thought were really impressive. And it really seems like, when it comes to the character of Mickey, everyone takes advantage of him. Even his, like, you could say friend, who's Steven Yeun, who I really like the guy. I thought he's a really great actor. I'm glad he's getting more work, especially after Walking Dead. He just gets very, he's the kind of guy where he's not going to do anything, so people just walk all over him. And I'm kind of going like, you're giving me a lot of the same vibe of like James McAvoy in Wanted, where, his job he hates, his best friend was having sex with his girlfriend, and then this thing happens, and it's just like, oh, this woke him up. But with this, there's nothing there for Mickey to wake up to. So it's like, okay, all right, whatever. So overall, this was an interesting movie. Do I think this is as good as something like Snowpiercer? No. And it's very different from something like Parasite. But it tries to be a political satire and a dark comedy sci-fi film. And like I said, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, which is kind of the big issue for me. So, which then boggles down its pacing. And it's very plot driven. And there are parts where it doesn't need to be, the detail doesn't need to be to an extreme level, which goes back to pacing. Where it's like, okay, like this kind of thing here, like this 5 minutes doesn't need to be here. All right, continue. All right, this little segment doesn't need to be here. This little spoken word does not need to be here. So it it kind of feels maybe like a director's cut instead of a theatrical cut. It's kind of like, okay, was this kind of stuff necessary? So while I did think this was a good movie, I give it maybe like a high average. Because of the performances and the effects on the cinematography. And every time when I think about like its pacing or its balancing or personally no one to grasp onto, I go back to the good and I'm like, you know what? That was really good. So maybe like a high average. While I think this was a good movie, would I watch this one again? Probably not. If someone told me like, hey, let's watch a Bong Joon-ho movie, I would have been like, let's watch Parasite or let's watch Snowpiercer. I would pick those two over this one because I'm just like, yeah, it's very, there's a lot of talking, a lot of dialogue. It's very heavily on the details. It's very plot driven, which is fine, but it brings down its pacing. So I think this is a good movie. I don't think I would be giddy to watch this again. I would much rather pick a different movie from him, but he's still very, very good director, and I can't wait to see his next movie, especially since he said that John Carpenter's going to do the score for it. So you already have me signed up, man.
I don't like you.
But I'm you.
I'm not you. I'm gonna kill you.
Tell me, queen.